Welcome back to another episode of the Partnernomics Show. Today I had the opportunity to catch up with Greg Unruh. For those of you that have been tracking with us for a while on our podcast, I know that I love to pull Greg in about once a year or so and chat about different topics. But today we talked about role-based partner pairing. We talk a lot about, the best partners that an organization has are those partners where their teams just seem like a natural extension of your team, whether it's on the sales side, marketing side, customer success, product development, whatever the reason may be. And one of the best structures I've seen of how to make that natural extension happen is through role-based partner pairing. And so I asked Greg if he would come on and step us through his framework that he's deployed at a number of different organizations over the past, 10 or 15 years. And he was kind enough to do that. So listen in and take some good notes. And when you get to the end, why don't you try to grab this role-based partner pairing and put it into your organization, and certainly let us know if you have any questions.
Welcome to the Partnernomics Show, where industry thought leaders discuss the hottest topics in partnerships, ecosystems, and innovation.
Well, welcome back to another episode of the Partnernomics Show. Great to be with you today. And we have a repeat guest on here. Greg's been on here a few different times. Really enjoy the opportunity to chat with Greg Unruh. If you've been following us for a while, you've certainly heard some conversations that I've had with Greg. We've I don't know, Greg, probably 10 years or close to 10 years anyway that we've been collaborating.
I think so. Yeah, it's been a minute.
Been quite a while. Pretty cool ride. Lots of neat things going on. But I asked Greg if he wouldn't mind hopping on and chatting about role-based partner pairing. So this is a system, or I guess a structure, a construct that he developed a number of years ago. And it was actually one of the first things that he had mentioned to me and kind of stepped me through. And we've put it into the Partnernomics methodology. And I don't know, I think by this time we've probably had hundreds of companies that have, leveraged that framework. But we thought we would make a recording and share a little bit of what role-based partner pairing is. Certainly, as we get deeper into this ecosystems and ecosystem-led growth, partner-led growth, there's more and more companies doing this. So I wanted to put this framework out here. But Greg, thanks for taking some time out to chat with us.
Yeah, of course, Mark. It's always good. I enjoy, I'm passionate about the topic and excited to talk to you a little bit about role-based partner pairing and how we've applied that. Like you said, I think probably hundreds of companies at this point.
Yeah, I got a couple other topics that I want to throw in here as well toward the end. But before we get to it, can you give us a little bit of just kind of the history of role-based partner pairing? How did you come up with it? When did you, how many different times have you applied it? When did you apply it? And I know by now it's really a proven framework that you continue to evangelize for.
Yeah, it really started out, but I'll be careful about saying this. It's not limited to, but it did start out with smaller organizations that are maybe under-resourced, where I've come in as a partner leader in that organization, but looking at how are we going to create engagement? How are we going to have enough people to build out the ecosystem? Because a lot of times what would happen is we go through the process of identifying the right IPP or ideal partner profile, and you get a good ecosystem of partners built, but then you have to manage those partners. And at some point, it's not the number of partners, it's really the partner contacts. How do you create that field level engagement by role? So by role, I mean, I could have a sales rep paired to a sales rep, a marketing manager paired to a marketing manager, executive sponsor paired to executive sponsor, maybe a tech leader paired to a tech leader, depending on the type of partnership that you're engaged with. So that's the role piece of it. But as you break that down, you have a finite amount of resources in your organization, and you have multiple partners with multiple layers of contact. How do you stay top of mind and engaged at every one of those levels within the organization? It's not something that an individual or even a small team of individuals could do in kind of the partnership structure. So role-based partner pairing was how I came up with that. Is I actually went to and started evaluating our direct sales organization, which was bigger, had more resources. and albeit still small, I started pairing on the sales side account executives to the account executive peers within those partner contacts. I started pairing those contacts to at the role level, starting with sales. And how it would begin with is, hey, just get a bi-weekly touch point established with that peer of yours and dedicate, a certain amount of time. So if you had 5 contacts that you're paired with, and that could be within one partner organization, or it could be across 5 partner organizations, just depends on again, not the number of partners, but the number of partner contacts. As we started doing that, it starts creating engagement. And, in my role, I would have engagement and pairings with my partner counterparts. And what would happen is we start creating multiple levels of engagement with each one of those organizations by leveraging our resources and maximizing what we have available internally without having to go out and hire additional headcount. And so covertly, I started converting a lot of my direct sales reps. And in some cases, it actually created a career path. In some cases, they were really good at building that relationship and doing that. And that became a little bit of a farming ground for me to identify certain skill sets and resources that could maybe get promoted into a partner development or leadership role on the partner team.
Yeah, we talk a ton about engagement all throughout our methodology. And it reminds me of this guy when I was in college. He was mentoring me, and he's in real estate. The dude's worth like $1 trillion. And he's like, Mark, there's 3 things that matters in real estate: location, location, and location. Man, whenever I think of partnerships, there's 3 things that matter: engagement, engagement, engagement. Just driving engagement, because if you can drive engagement, that is the leading indicator of a successful relationship.
It's interesting because you'd think that it was natural, but I would have to do a lot of coaching and mentoring on, okay, now you're paired to that partner contact and you set up your biweekly cadence. And so now the call comes on. What do you talk about? I said, talk about their family, talk about where they went to school, talk about a football game. You have to build a personal, trusted connection. And that is the core of that is getting to know them as an individual, not as a lead source. That will come. But if you get to know them as an individual and invest that time and energy to get to know them personally, you set up that biweekly cadence, you have that, on your calendar to connect. And then as as you have the casual conversation, then it becomes, well, how can I help you? Help me understand what you need in your role. Can I help you? And I always come with a gift in hand before I put my hand out. I want to see how can I help that contact and support their efforts. And all of a sudden now it makes that next call, okay, this is worth me taking because there's value. You're creating value. Now, with that, and we'll probably get into this, but I pair that with a content management strategy because I want to create more engagement opportunities. If you think of, okay, I've got X number of contacts I'm paired with, and I do it twice a month, well, that's only 24 touches a year when you think of it that way. That's not a lot. You need more than that, but you have to do it with value and creating value. And so we can talk a little bit about how I do that over and above just the biweekly cadence that you establish, which is really important. That's the starting point. But
I
much
want to
more
hit something you said earlier, and we talk a lot about people do business with people. It's not companies doing business with companies. And
100%.
so many times, I mean, obviously, you and I have worked for multiple organizations, and we carry those relationships with us. And it truly is people doing business with people. And so, yeah, one of the things I'd love to impress upon partnering professionals, but executives in general, is the importance of developing those real relationships.
Dude, I've said this my entire career. When I talk about kind of that career path, and this is, as a leader and coach for companies and kind of help people guided down their career path. I've always said this, that partners don't partner with the logo on your business card. They partner with the name on your business card. And that carries through from company to company to company. And I can tell you this in my own experience, that I have many partners that have followed me from one engagement to the next, to the next, to the next. And I've got some partners that have been with me for 10 plus years, but I haven't been with the same organization for 10 plus years. But those partnerships have followed the name on the card and not the logo. That's really important. But the reason that happens is I invested personally into each and every one of those relationships. I mean, I could tell you where their kids went to school. I could tell you when they had their wisdom teeth taken out. I could tell you everything you want to know about them. And they could probably do the same about me, because that develops the trust, the transparency. And now all of a sudden, we're in such a relationship at that point. Well, we want to help one another out. How can I make you successful? How can I help you? And they're thinking the same thing. That investment up front pays so many dividends down the line that, it doesn't happen immediately. You don't start tomorrow and then next week you've got this huge lead flow. You have to invest and be patient in developing that trust and invest in that. If you don't, and it just seems, you can tell sincerity from someone being genuine versus somebody scripted. It can't be script. It's got to be off script. You got to be real. If you're real with people, they'll be real with you, and then that's what develops that relationship. And again, the partnership as a whole, the logo, if you will, if I've got 15 active pairings within that brand, and we're actively engaged, and we're operating in multiple levels or multiple departments in that organization, man, we're top of mind throughout. That really begins to permeate into a productive relationship that's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, we talk a lot about, your best partners, we call them truly strategic partners. Your best partners should be just a natural extension of your own company. Just think of it as a natural extension. And that's one of the awesome things about role-based partner pairing, is it's really kind of the bridges that allow that to take place. And so just as inside large organizations, you have these different departments or maybe different offices in other cities, but they have similar roles. Think of constructing a partnership program in a similar vein. Just because they have a different company name or they're in a different building, you can still have very aligned purposes and provide that mutual value to each other.
100%. And you kind of touched on something, maybe is a good segue into what I think is the adjacent to the role-based partner pairing, and that is the content management strategy, because they go hand in hand. And so when you think about, if you have content, you have thought leadership, you have information internally, in-house, that you're training and educating and trying to make your own salespeople better, if it's good for your team, it's good for your partner contact. And so if you have and you're generating that type of content and that thought leadership and that training, leverage those role-based partner pairings to extend that information to your partner as just value. You're bringing value at that point. You're helping them with, hey, I saw this. This is something that was in the, an industry, news, or in the industry news that, we talked about it internally. I wanted to share this with you because I thought it might have relevance to you, or at least the companies you're working with, that you might want to pass along. All of a sudden, that now is a conversation starter. You brought value, but more importantly, you shared something that now is a pivot point for a conversation, which is really what you want. You want to have more engagement, more conversation. You don't want to get caught up in the cycle of just digital communications. Sometimes you get lost in email, you get lost in social. There's nothing that replaces getting on a call and having a face-to-face conversation, or sitting across the room and having coffee with somebody, developing that level of relationship. Now, obviously, you can't always sit face-to-face, but if you have the opportunity, take it. But otherwise, a phone call or a video call to talk about something that you think could bring value, not just to them, but to their clients, and help them in their position and their job, you've brought tremendous value to them. They're going to be thinking about that. You're now top of mind. And that's, in a nutshell, that's the whole engine. But I get very tactical on the content sequence and how we create that content, how we generate that content, what sequence do we do, and there's some ad hoc capabilities. What I'd like to do is over the course of a month, for each contact or each pairing, if you will, I want to create not just the standard biweekly touch point that you can stagger, so you have meetings every week if you stagger it right, depending on how many pairings you have, but I could create 4 or 5 unique value-driven touch point or conversation starters per week if I wanted to, that bring meaning and value, not just reaching out because, for no reason or no purpose. You got to give purpose to everything. And that purpose has to have value for them to want to pick up the phone and hear you.
Yeah, if you're adding value to the conversation, you're showing your thought leadership that you're plugged in, tuned in to the industry that you're at. I mean, you become an authority, and that's certainly where you want to be as a partner, is somebody that's seen as an authority source. Because what you want to do is be leading your partnership. You want to be leading that partnership forward, and certainly being top of mind with them. Greg, what's some different topics or areas, just to get kind of the juices flowing for people? What's some of the topics that you've used for these conversation starters, or these thought leadership pieces, or maybe statistics that you set out there that would provide value to your partners?
Yeah, the first thing is, the biweekly cadence that you set up, that's step number one. And there's not really a content other than just getting to know one another and continuing to get to know one another. But then when you start layering in the content strategy as conversation starters, I oftentimes start out with things that might seem obvious, but I might put out have marketing create me a piece on ideal client profile. What's a good client look like? And, from an ICP perspective, or what's our lead registration process? I might look at kind of sales enablement type of content that's valuable. You can do those in kind of one-to-many training sessions. I find that those are less effective. Whereas if you've established and created a relationship at an individual level, hey man, let me walk you through this. I know that we did a training on it, but let me cut through the chase and kind of show you here's the things that I'm looking at. And I'll be thinking about companies because, the good news is me and my contact that I'm paired with, we're going after the same companies if you're partnered correctly. You've got the same ICP that you're going after. Let's find a better way to be thinking of one another, whether you walk in the front door or I walk in the front door. Let's pull one another through the door together. And so sometimes I start with some of the internal sales enablement training materials, but then the next natural segue to that is really be paying attention to what's going on in the industry news. In some industries, depending on who you're partnered with or influences, you might be looking at earnings calls. And hey, I was listening to the earnings call of so-and-so company, and I heard, these 3 little nuggets that I thought, were interesting. I'm going to pass this along to you. That's value. There's relevance to that. But maybe more importantly for me personally is it's a conversation starter. It gave me a reason to reach out and talk about it and maybe color in the lines and put my color on it. So it can be quite broad. I know in some organizations I work with, they have a standard newsletter that goes out that you subscribe to. I don't assume that all my partner contacts are subscribed to that newsletter. I assume that they're not. And so when that newsletter goes out, I'm like, hey, I'm going to forward this newsletter. You may or may not be subscribed to it, but let me highlight a couple areas in here that I think might be relevant to you personally that you might find interesting, just because I know you. And I push that out. That becomes a really easy conversation starter, and it brings value. So there's a million topics. There should be no shortage of topics to do. And I'll tell you how I kind of structure that. I'll have, let's say, for example, I got a biweekly partner pairing. And so I know I'm going to talk to that contact, twice a month. I might have a monthly newsletter that goes out. So that's a third contact. I might put in a bi-weekly content push that's just thought leadership, industry news, sales enablement. Do that on a bi-weekly content. Well, now I've created, Now I'm up to what, five different touch points with that contact of bringing value. In some cases, I roll out what I call roundtables, and that's kind of where those contacts get to come together and kind of focus groups, and we come together once a month, and so that creates another six contact. Before you know it, and that's just on the sales side. Now, think if we're doing that and the marketing team's collaborating at that same level of influence. Now, the cadence, it may not be weekly, it may not be biweekly. Every role is going to be different. I wouldn't expect the CEO of one company, connecting on a biweekly content or sequence with the CEO of another company, but maybe quarterly, maybe, every 6 weeks you find a reason to, drop something out there other than a planned partner business review.
One of your sayings that I love and I frequently repeat is, if you're not top of mind, somebody else is. And your best partners will have options. Your best partners also have other companies that they're partnered with. And in some cases, they'll be your competitors. And so if you're not top of mind, somebody else is. And to the point that you're making, whenever you have the role-based partner pairing, it's not just you connecting with your peer, but throughout the organization, you have these different peerings. And whenever there's, these group team conversation, company meetings, whatever the case is, sales strategies, go-to-market strategies, new products, new features coming out, you want your name being brought up in those conversations.
100%. And you're touching on my competitive juices now, because that's where I get fired up on in the whole role-based partner pairing, and I really take it to heart that if you're not top of mind, somebody else is. And so I am trying to create multiple conversation starters and engagement points with the role-based partner pairing paired with the content management strategy across multiple layers, departments, roles within the organization. Before you know it, you can't help but be top of mind in that organization. And I'm doubtful that in my competitive lane and just the success we've had in doing this, a lot of companies just simply aren't disciplined in doing that. They are reactionary and opportunistic, but they're not proactive and strategic in how they want to do that. If you get proactive and strategic and actually lay out a plan, have a strategy, create the pairings, and you do all the things that you need to do, leading up to that, you'll have a really successful partnership if you've done the due diligence, even before the partnership to ensure that you have good alignment and IC or IPP. But once you have that, then layer in this strategy and you will create significant engagement. And I can tell you this, just in my career and looking across those sales individuals that made President's Club and those that didn't, I can go to one report that I look at. It's called APR, Actions, Proceed, Results. And I can look at their activity. And I can tell you there's a direct dotted line: high engagement, high activity, high productivity, high results. Low engagement, low productivity, low results. It's that simple.
100%. 100%. I think this kind of even goes back and speaks to the importance of recruiting well and recruiting companies that are also bought into this philosophy. There's exceptions, but by and large, whenever you're recruiting partners, you describe the way that you envision this partnership being managed, and you outline either role-based partner pairing, or if nothing else, at a minimum, right, is you have these partner business reviews, these periodic partner business reviews, monthly, biweekly, whatever the cadence is that you feel that you need. And if your partner doesn't want to talk to you, they're like, no, I'll just toss stuff your way whenever it comes across my plate. That's probably an indication that you might need to continue looking elsewhere.
Yeah, well, you know where I put those partners? I put those into the non-managed self-service category. I don't necessarily ever fire a partner. I'll put them in a non-managed self-service, and if they want to be reactionary and opportunistic, that's fine. If they throw one over the fence once a year, great. But I'm not going to dedicate one single cycle of resource on trying to manage somebody that doesn't want to invest and be engaged in it. But something that came into mind that I did want to touch on that I think is really important in that role-based partner pairing is when you make those pairings and you facilitate those relationships, it's not a guarantee that every connection is going to be a good connection. So you might get paired with somebody that could care less or non-responsive, or, for the last 5 meetings that I've scheduled with them, they've been a no-show. Well, don't continue to invest in that. So I have a scoring system, and I actually apply this in our CRMs, or I set this up in the CRM for companies, that there's a scoring system at the contact level that, 4 is highly engaged and 0 is not engaged at all, move them into a marketing sequence or nurture sequence. And so I allow the company contact that I pair that partner contact to, I allow them the full autonomy to make that decision. How do you want to score them? If you're meeting weekly, give them a high score, 4. If they're meeting biweekly, maybe that's a 3. If it's, you kind of get the idea of that. But it allows them the autonomy to not waste cycles on somebody that's just, and that's fine. In fact, I would rather know sooner than later somebody's not going to be engaged. I'll score them out as a 0, throw them into a marketing nurture sequence, still let them pepper them with information that they can choose to consume, but I'll repair somebody else and see if we can't get some action and get them into the sequence and build that relationship. It seems simple when I talk about it, but it's, the applications of that and getting the organization to align from a content to the delivery to the pairings to the, all well and good to put that out there, but it also comes down to execution. If
Always
you put
seems
it
to
out
come
there,
down to execution, right?
man, I'm telling you, if you put it out there and you put this whole system in place, but then you have individuals that don't execute and take advantage of those conversation starters. Well, kind of back to the scoring system and what I look at. Well, you're performing under quota. And if you're underperforming, I can 100% of the time go and look at your engagement and tell you why you're underperforming.
Yeah.
If you're overachieving, I can also go there and tell you why this person's really successful. And I'll tend to highlight that and share that with the rest of the team. Look how well Bob's doing over here. And here's what he's doing. This is a secret sauce. And it's really not all that secret. I'm sharing it all here on this call right now with you.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Greg, one last topic before we sign off. And that is, I could see, again, executives, partnering professionals, sales leaders, whatever the case is, saying, yeah, man, that sounds good, but how in the world, I'm already wearing 10 different hats. I don't have enough time to go, curate all of this information that I would be able to send over, these content pieces, these, conversation starters. You and I have spent a little bit of time working on these AI tools, and it's pretty amazing what they can do. Share a little bit with the audience about, some of the things that you've done and how you've leveraged the AI tools, or maybe some of the prompts you've used to get this content.
I mean, if you're looking for conversation starters and you're looking for something that brings value, think of AI tools that, information's out there in the public domain, and they do a great job of collecting the information, summarizing, assimilating it, and putting it in context and in value. I mean, that's the whole point of AI. And then it continues to build intelligence. But I can give you a great example of taking an AI tool that goes out and say, hey, give me summarize the earnings call for company A and company B, which are both in my space, and summarize the bullet points for that. And AI it's amazing because you can give it context and it interprets that, and you can kind of direct it. You talk about an easy way to create content and find thought leadership and industry news. And maybe it's stuff that's not industry news, it's on the headlines, but like an earnings call for companies that you may be partnered with, or maybe companies that you're targeting for some sort of sales pursuit together. Man, what a great way to kind of assimilate and grab all that information, summarize it, and create very easy conversation starters and thought leadership that, again, brings value, not just noise, but value.
Yeah, man, that's a great recommendation. I've used that a number of times, and
I use it all the time.
Very helpful.
I use it all the time. It's only going to get smarter and better.
That's right. Greg, thanks for carving out some time. from your busy day to chat with us a little bit, share your insights. Man, role-based partner pairing has been huge. Like I said, I think there's been hundreds of organizations that have adopted that methodology inside of their companies and getting great results. So definitely encourage others to dig in, give this a shot, and hey, reach back out and let us know. But thanks, Greg. Appreciate it. Good seeing you again.
Hey, Mark, always good. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of the Partnernomics Show. Don't forget to subscribe to get the newest episodes at thepartnernomicsshow.com.